Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. In the last where we finished off our duties in Mauville City for now, taking care of our third gym leader over there in the process, and then we immediately headed west past Route 117 to our next town here, Verdanturf. We've actually heard about this town before, namely technically 3 times. The first was when we first met Wally actually, as this is the town he was meant to move to with his family, and we also heard about it directly from him and his family again when we just met them in Mauville when we first entered the town. But also, if you look at the map, we're actually just on the other side of the Turf Tunnel. That tunnel is named such because it's between Rustboro and Verdanturf. So worth noting, while we're not tackling this mechanics until way later like I've already mentioned, Verdanturf does have a contest hall. Here in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, you can tackle any rank of the Pokemon contests at any contest halls across the 4 total locations. There being several of them across the game is more or less a carryover from the original Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, wherein, if memory serves, every single town that had a contest hall had a specific rank of contest to do within it, all culminating in the final contest hall, I believe, having the highest difficulty version of them. In Emerald, notably, all except for the final contest hall were actively replaced with battle tents, which served more or less as practice rounds for the battle frontier you can encounter in postgame that we'll be talking about later on. With that said, because Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, as their names would suggest, are more remakes of Ruby and Sapphire with some Emerald spiced in here and again, we have all 4 of the original contest hall locations. Oh, so he did come to visit. If you're looking for Wally, though, I'm afraid he's gone. After he lost to you in Mauville, he said he had to train more, and we haven't seen him since. It must be his Pokemon that have lit such a fire in that boy, and given him so much hope to live for. Well, that's nice. My daughter's boyfriend's a very driven and passionate sort of person. He's been digging a tunnel nonstop just so he can see my daughter. My daughter's a little concerned, so she goes out to the tunnel a lot. Well, if you think back to when we saved Pico from the Team Aqua Grunt on the Rustboro side of Turf Tunnel, we did see some Rock Smash rocks over there, so maybe we should check that out. So this little girl here is missing her Shroomish. It disappeared around the town central sign. This is a side quest I start now, but actively forget to do the final step of for a majority of the LP. So we'll talk more about what it does later, but I will tell you what you should do after doing this. After talking to her, investigate the central sign, and we find ourselves the Shroomish in question. And thankfully, we just automatically take it back to her at this point. We don't have to chase it around town any further after that. Ah, Mushu! Thank you so much for finding my Shroomish. I'll give you this. I just found it. It has a strange shape, and it looks amazing. So here we get the intriguing stone. Getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, this is a Mega Stone. With that said, in order to have it identified as one, you need to take it back to Mr. Stone at the top floor of Devon Corporation. If memory serves, I don't do this until just before we go after the final bosses of the main campaign, or maybe in our first loop of completing things around the world after we clear the game and start off post-game. I actively can't remember. It's one of those two, but we ain't doing that in the footage for a while. In the meanwhile, let's talk about something really quick. Wally's uncle mentions that Wally just kind of disappeared and they haven't seen him in a little bit. You can actually get a pretty good gauge on where he is and what his progress is. I just continuously forget to do so. Namely, if you take a look at the statues near the entrance to any Pokemon gym, you can see who's cleared the gym. This has been a thing since Gen 1. After you clear the gym, your name is added to it, for instance. But I think after Mauville and seeing that scene in specific, Wally's name will be on all future Pokemon gym entrance signs like that. Similarly to how I think, if memory serves, in Gen 1, Blue's name is on every single one of those before you even remotely reach the town. So this guy's looking for his glasses, and we can actively look around using the dowsing machine or just mashing the A button to find them. There's the black glasses. I dropped my glasses. Can you help me find them? Those glasses. May I see them for a second? These are black glasses. They're not what I'm looking for. Maybe my glasses aren't around here. So we just get to keep those. Hell yeah. Also, there's an HP up here that I will never use, more than likely. The black glasses specifically are a held item for Pokemon that, when held, actively boost the power of their Dark-type moves by some percentage. I think it depends on the generation, like with some other things that have gotten buffs over the years. Overall, if you're using a lot of Dark-type moves, not a bad thing to have around. On the other side of this rock, my boyfriend labors day after day. He's not just digging this tunnel to come see me. He works his hands raw and rough for the benefit of everyone. I want to do something about this boulder, but it's beyond me to deal with it alone. Your Pokemon, it can use Rock Smash? Please use Rock Smash and break up these boulders. Sure. Thank you so much for doing this. Wow, you shattered those boulders blocking the way. To show you how much I appreciate this, I'd like you to have this. And for doing that, we get the Agronite. I found that when I was digging for the tunnel. I felt like there's some mysterious power coming from it, but I don't think I could do a thing with it. Wanda, now I can see you anytime. That's wonderful. Come on, let me take you to my place so you can rest. As the name would suggest, Agronite is our next Megastone. It in specific allows you to evolve Aggron, the final Pokemon in the Aaron line, into its Mega form, which, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, is a pretty good one. But I'll talk more about that when we eventually see an Aggron. At least I think we do across this LP at some point. Without getting too much into what happens later on, a good, like, 30 hours of the gameplay of this LP is a blur in my memory just because of how arduous it was to get done. So it kind of blends together and I forget what we actively see along the way. Now, worth noting, while I mentioned you can do all of the ranks for contests at any contest hall in the game, it's still worth entering every single contest hall across the game and talking to all the NPCs, because they all have their own unique item of some sort within them. For instance, here in the Verdanturf contest hall, you can talk to that one girl and get the TM for Attract. That is a normal type move that, if the user and the target are opposite genders, hits the target with the Infatuation status ailment, which is, I think I've already briefly talked about this in some form, effectively another form of confusion where 50% of the time you just won't actively get to take your turn. With that said, you can stack it with, say, Paralysis and Confusion, so there's a 50% chance of attacking, with a 50% chance of attacking, and a 50% chance of either attacking the opponent or yourself. So, you know, just a good 12.5% chance of actively dealing damage to you or the opponent in some form. There we get the Manectite. That is the Megastone for Electrike's evolution, Manectric. But again, I'm not going to go over that until we eventually see a Manectric, which I think we do across the LP once again. We actively would have if we were playing Emerald by this point, because Watson had one in his party back then. But again, they change up some of the teams here, even from what they were in Ruby and Sapphire from my memory, and at times it can feel a little weird, I won't lie. I guess I might as well say, I'll probably have some good downtime towards the end of the LP to talk about stuff like this, but if there's a point where I know I'm not going to run into the Pokemon in question that gets a Mega Stone, I'll talk about their Mega Evolution around that point. There's a couple of points I can think of I can do that near the end of the footage, but I'll see how that pans out while I'm editing the rest of it. So welcome to the cycling road here in Hoenn. The main reason I'm going across this is to showcase it as a decent shortcut across Route 110, but also for the Pokemon trainers along it. But that said, there's a little bit of a mini game tied to this place. Namely, if you have the Mach Bike from Rydell Cycles in Mauville and ride from the northern entrance of the cycling road down to the south, they'll take note of how long it takes you and how many times you collide into something along the way. There's a bit of dialogue tied to it, but I don't think there's any rewards given for it. It's just a little distraction, I guess, you can do while potentially hatching eggs, which we'll talk about that kind of stuff later on. Where are we supposed to be? Where are we going again? It's Mount Chimney. Stay spaced out, you'll get scolded by Archie. Mount Chimney. It'll be a long walk going around 112 to get there. Wonder if I should buy lunch first. I mean, maybe, man. It's not that long a road, but at the end of the day, who knows how much that is because of game scaling or not. So because we've teched out all we can to the west, it's time for us to finally head north towards our next major destination along Route 112. With that said, we can do a little bit of challenge along the way. This is the Winstrait's house. You don't really need to here in Orasp, I do recommend saving. Hello, I take it you're a traveler. What do you say to taking on our family of 4 in a series of Pokemon battles? That's the spirit, I like you. This is a series of 4 Pokemon battles that ultimately just gets you a neat item at the end of it all. I'd recommend doing this more for the experience than anything, because usually I don't think there's going to be any super new Pokemon for you along the way. With that said, I probably should note, actually, something I forgot to mention last time. Route 117, if memory serves, is the first route you can actively catch Merrills on. So if you were interested in what I talked about with the Merrill line earlier in the LP, I'd actively recommend going to catch one there. It's a really good water type to have long term. With that said, once again, I have a different plan for my endgame water type than even the Lombre I currently have in my party, but we're not going to see that for a good bit of time still, if I had to guess, from the pace of the footage and editing. I say pace up because I actively haven't edited anything further than part 12 still at the moment. Moments like this in the series have always felt a little weird to me, although when I think about it, they kind of are just the equivalent of when you have to do, like, waves of encounters during a story segment in, like, a Final Fantasy game, or In some cases, if the trainer just uses multiple of the same Pokemon, it's like those rare cases where you kill an enemy and it just comes back to life once or twice before it's actively dead. Kind of like how, if memory serves, they actively handle the HP of the final boss in Final Fantasy IV behind the scenes. If that makes sense. It's kind of a weird thing at the same time, though, because it doesn't feel like that. I think it's largely a matter of perspective and expectations, if that makes sense. With that said, time for our first new Pokemon in this part. This is a Numel, fire ground type, so it's weak to ground actively still, as well as water, notably a 4x weakness to water, and it's immune to electric. It's got an okay special attack stat for a first phase Pokemon, but it's nothing super impressive. If you stick with it and evolve it, you do end up getting a really good mixed attacker. It's just that it can't really take a hit too well, especially if it's water type, of course. And with as common as water types are, as I've already brought up, that can be a little bit of a risky biscuit, so to speak. With that said, not for nothing, Numel has a really interesting ability that it can have. It can have 3 abilities in total: Oblivious, which prevents the attraction status ailment from working on it. Its hidden ability is Own Tempo, which prevents the confusion status ailment from working on it, which has its uses in certain moves, honestly. But the more interesting ability it can get is Simple. What Simple does is that it actively doubles the effectiveness of any stat boosts received in battle. For instance, say you use Defense Curl to raise a Numel with Simple's defense. It's treated as having raised its defense 2 stages in that case, rather than 1. But worth noting, the opposite is also true. If you use Growl on a Numel with Simple to lower its attack, it's treated as lowering its attack by 2 stages rather than 1. So it's a bit of a risk versus reward kind of scenario. Also worth noting, while it does double the effectiveness of those stats being raised or lowered, they still have the usual caps. It's just that you'll hit that cap at a +3 rather than a +6, so to speak. So the main reason you actively go and fight the win straits is to get that Macho Brace there. The Macho Brace is an item that is more useful in some generations than others. What it does is that it actively doubles the incoming effort values to any Pokemon holding it, but it also halves their speed stats, so in most cases they're probably going to end up going second. With the existence of super training alongside other ways to farm out EVs more efficiently in later games, I feel personally the Macho Brace kind of fell out of use. But if you want it, it's there, and it's a neat little reward to have. And notably, it does stack with a mechanic I think I may have talked about back in Heart Gold, Silver, oh my god. So be careful using Rock Smash, because occasionally when you use it on rocks to break, it'll spawn a Pokemon encounter. I believe in this route in specific, it'll almost always be Geodudes, if not always be Geodudes, which, hey, pretty easy way to find them. It's just a matter of having the encounter actually happen at all. Worth noting, though, when you do Rock Smash, you also have a pretty low chance of getting items to spawn in. And not for nothing, the items you can get from Rock Smashing are generally pretty good. Either it's things you can sell for a good chunk of change, like soft sands, star pieces, or big pearls. Sometimes it's PP restoratives like Ethers and Heart Ethers. Sometimes it's the rare Max Revive or Revive to revive a Pokemon in battle. It's just a matter of how lucky you get. Oh, we just spotted a tough-looking trainer here of all places. Okay, roll camera, let's get this interview. We've technically seen Gabby here before back at the Pokemon Fan Club, but this is a bit of a recurring little NPC battle fight that ties into the Easy Chat system. When you battle them, you'll get the option to input a new response for the Easy Chat stuff, or you can just type it here in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and then you can hear that story later on the BuzzNav application of the PokéNav Plus. With that said, not super important. Not for nothing, though. Pretty good source of money and experience points later on, because they actively power up as you go through the game. Awesome, awesome! Who are you? I knew we were onto something wild when we spotted you. Oh, please let me explain. We travel around everywhere interviewing all sorts of trainers. Care to give us a bit of your time for an interview? Sure, why not? You will? Thank you. Okay, I need you to describe your feelings about our battle, but it has to be short and sweet. Go. Sure. Yeah, that's the perfect clincher. I get the feeling this will make a great TV show. There's a chance that they'll air this on BuzzNav, so make sure to look for us. Okay, we'll be seeing you. You don't need to ever talk to them, but I mean, hey, free experience in that regard is free experience no matter what, you know what I mean? With that said, at this point in the game, we're starting our trek towards the northwestern chunk of Hoenn, which honestly is probably my least favorite chunk of the game on the whole, even barring the memes about a certain section later on and the tediousness and the too much of some things and all that jazz. If only because I feel like this part of the game feels relatively aimless, especially in the original game, although they fix it up a lot here in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, especially given they give you a few more reminders of what you're actively doing, given that you're actively tracing down Team Aqua in some form. With that said, this trainer here has a new Pokemon for us. This is, I believe the anime pronounced it Illumise, but I don't know if that's exactly accurate, given apparently, I remember the one movie pronouncing it Arceus, but apparently it's Arceus nowadays, so, And that was Illumise. Illumise is a pure bug type, meaning it is weak to flying, rock, and fire. It's decently fast and has some okay special attacks, and I think it has an okay moveset at best. But that's about where the buck stops in that Pokemon for me, because since it also doesn't evolve, it means that it basically starts at its fullest potential. Worth noting, though, you can catch them back on Route 117 alongside their partner Volbeat we'll be talking about later on. But they're more common in one version than another. With that said, time for our next new Pokemon. This is Sandshrew from Gen 1, a pure ground type, meaning it is weak to water, grass, and ice, but immune to electric. For a first phase Pokemon, it's got some pretty good physical attack and defense, but its special stats and speed can leave a lot to be desired. But when it evolves, it ends up becoming a very good physical Pokemon, and while it still is a little bit lacking on the speed and special stats, you're not using it for that in most cases anyway. I like the Sandshrew line a lot. I used one even in a prior LP for pretty good reason. Up here we have a desert area, but because of how strong the sandstorm is around there, we actively can't move on for the moment, so we'll be visiting that area more in depth later on. Oh, hi, May. Ah, Kyle. Look, right up there, that's Mount Chimney. It sure is big. No, more like huge. It totally takes my breath away. I'd love to take the cable car all the way up to the top someday. Huh? Hey, Kyle, don't your Pokemon seem a little ragged around the edges? Here, let me give them a little boost. Here, take this too. Thank you for the extraordinarily good HM. I bet you can find all kinds of ways to use it in the mountains that lie ahead. But it won't work outside of battle if you don't have a badge from Lava Ridge Gym. What am I doing nattering away here? I'm supposed to be on my way to Full Arbor to visit Professor Cosmo. I'm off for now, Kyle, but let's battle next time. Worth noting, that encounter with Brandon or May was added here for Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire to act as a secondary healing point that you don't even really need because you're not too far from Mauville City at this point. The way they add those, I find a little bit weird in this particular remake, if only because things are close enough in this region where the extra healing points don't really feel needed. With that said, we did get the Strength HM, which is a normal type HM. It's just a really strong physical move that is good on a lot of physically minded Pokemon. It doesn't have any secondary effects outside of what we can eventually use it for in the world as an HM, but it's worth keeping around long term in my eyes. Additionally, it's worth noting that this being the location of the Strength HM is a change for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. In the original Adventures Through Hoenn on the GBA, it was the reward for the minor side quest we did earlier today in Turf Tunnel featuring the couple. I'm assuming this change was for two reasons. One was to give space for a place to find a Mega Stone, and the other was probably to put Strength along the main plot route rather than being a sidetrack you had to do along the way. Not that I really minded the sidetrack because of how quick it is in either release, but I'm assuming enough people had trouble finding it on their first playthrough that the memory of that kind of stuck around from when they eventually did the remake here. So we found Team Aqua over there, but they're blocking the way to the cable car, so we actively can't reach the top of Mount Chimney for a good little bit still. So we're going to end up ultimately actively following where May is going and heading on over to Full Arbor Town on the map on the very northern edge of Hoenn. And to do so, we need to go through the fiery path here. This is a weird little sub-dungeon that's mostly just a straight line for the main plot scenario. The big notable thing about this place is that a majority of the fire types that you can find in Hoenn that aren't, say, the Torchic line, are found here in the fiery path. For instance, I just caught myself a Numel for the fun of it. The Numb Pokemon. Numel stores magma of almost 2200 degrees Fahrenheit within its body. If it gets wet, the magma cools and hardens. In that event, the Pokemon's body grows heavy, and its movements become sluggish. I'm not going to use it, although I might evolve it later on doing a specific thing, but worth to have it along the way. That rock we just saw on screen a moment ago, by the way, is when we'll eventually be able to push with the Strength HM when we can use it in the field, at least. Yeah, though, Fiery Path, worthwhile captures you can do in there. You can capture Numel, you can capture Slugma if you want them. You can actually capture Machop in there as well, alongside Grimers and Coughings from Gen 1. We'll be talking about those Pokemon more or less later on, if memory serves. For right now, we have a different Pokemon to talk about. This is Mighty Yenna. This evolves from Poochyena at level 18. Pure Dark type, so it's weak to Fighting Bug and Fairy, but immune to Psychic. It's got an okay attack stat for an early game Pokemon, but even by this point in the game, any of its really good stats probably have ways you can find ones that easily outclass it, even if they take a little bit of work to get to. It's the average, like, early game Raticate adjacent thing where it's a first route Pokemon that's useful in the first chunk, but probably falls out of use in most teams by mid to late game, I'd say. Worth noting, most members of the Poochyena line you're going to fight throughout the campaign specifically have the Intimidate ability instead of any of the other abilities they can get. We've talked about Intimidate before. When the Pokemon with that is thrown onto the field, the opponent's attack is lowered by 1 stage. The other abilities that the Poochyena line can get are more interesting, though, because they can get Quick Feet, which boosts their speed stat by some amount if they have a status ailment. But also their hidden ability is one of my favorites in the series, Moxie, where after they knock out any Pokemon, their attack is boosted by a stage. I adore Moxie on a lot of Pokemon. Basically, anything that can get it, it's one of my favorite abilities to get on them. I'd recommend saving in the original game if memory serves before this specific Pokemon trainer, because I remember them being rough. This is our first Ace Trainer. Ace Trainers are usually the best Pokemon trainers within a given region, if only because either they use the Pokemon's movesets and abilities to good effect, or they'll actively use held items worth a damn. With that said, given the level curve here, not too much to worry about. What is worth noting, though, is that this Pokemon trainer does have a new Pokemon for us, and it's a pretty big one. This is Bagon. Pure Dragon type, so it's weak to Ice, Dragon, or Fairy. And while I forget if this specific instance of this Pokemon was here in the original game, at least here in Gen 6, because of Fairy type's existence, you can have an easy way to deal with the Dragon type. Worth noting that Bagon, for a baby form of a Pokemon, has a pretty good attack stat, but nothing else is super standout. But if you find a Bagon, you're going to want to use it. Because if you fully evolve that thing, you get this generation's notable pseudo-legendary that has a ridiculous physical and special attack stat and is also decently fast. And its defensive stats and HP aren't exactly bad either. With that said, I think in all versions of Hoenn, you're waiting a little bit before you can actively catch a Bagon, so at least there's that. I can smell it. I can smell it right here. The scent of adventure. This is definitely one. It's gotta be a secret spot. There'll be enough space here to build a crazy super place. Or my name's not Aaron. Yo, my young Pokemon trainer. What can I do you for, Huh? What do you mean you didn't ask for anything? Bet your heart did. Now, no need to be shy. After all, we managed to meet. The name's Aaron. Put her there. Unova born and 25 years old. Spent the last 11 years trying to find myself. Just a vagabond in search of dreams. I'm wandering around Hoenn trying to find a place where I really belong. That's right, a super secret base. You don't know about secret bases? What kind of life is that? Too sad, little bro. Time for a little lecture from Uncle Aaron. Let's start with what a secret base is, which is adventure, romance, awesome! For real, it's the best place ever to chill. You, your pals that you let hang out. Since you got this chance, you ought to learn how to make one. Take this. And here we get TM94 Secret Power. Secret Power can help you find the entrances to hidden places. These entrances, they're full of adventure, all right. That's why I like to throw some spice in there and call them secret spots. Like this. See? This right here is a secret spot. Doesn't it look like you could just climb right up into this tree? This is exactly the kind of place to bust out with secret power. Oh yeah, I never get tired of that. And that's all there is to finding secret spots and creating the entrance to a secret base. This move is crucial to having a secret base. Don't forget now. Not a bad layout. See, behind each secret spot, you'll find a place like this. They come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. So basically, whenever you find a secret spot, you ought to at least check it out with secret power. Just think, someday this place could be somebody's secret base, all decorated and filled with goods and friends. I'd really love to see it like that. Wait a sec. But who in the world are you? Ah, right, Kyle. Sorry about that, I just got on such a roll. So then, Kyle, how about I give you one more tip? When you feel happy about something, you ought to express that feeling. Put it into words. It'll cheer everybody up. So how about you tell me, huh? Come on, tell Uncle Aaron what you say when you're totally thrilled. I guess this fits. Ooh, give me cheese? Oh, that's good. You know why I asked that? Isn't it obvious? It's because I can see already that there's plenty in your future to feel happy about. That's just how we roll in the secret base life. Every day is full of happy adventures. Oh, yeah. Now I could go ahead and make a secret base right here, but I get the feeling this layout could be even better for you, little bro. Guess I'm gonna leave this spot for you. This'll be your secret base from now on, little pal. It's yours now, so decorate it, destroy it, do whatever you want. Whatever floats your boat, right? Oh, right, decorating. See, any decorations you get will be sent to the PC in your secret base automatically. Place them around and liven your base up a bit. There's a PC. That's where you'll find your decorations. Not that you'll probably have much, right? Here, I'll give you these to get you started. Oh, right, one last thing. You can do more than make your own secret base. You can visit other people's bases for a bit of fun. If you find a base that belongs to someone else, check it out. And here's the real point. When you check out someone's base, collect the flag you can find next to the PC. Something good might come of it. Looks like it's about time for me to hit the road in search of my perfect base. Goodbye for now, but hopefully I'll see you again, Kyle. If you need me for anything, try dropping in at the Secret Base Guild at Fort Tree. This is one of Gen 3 and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire's most notable multiplayer features. Any tree that looks out of place, any bush that looks out of place, any of those divots we've seen in stone walls up to now and things like that, you can use secret power on them outright to turn them into a secret base. You can even decide whether or not you even want to use the one at all. In a lot of regards, you can look at this as the follow-up to the old multiplayer rooms that used to be in Pokemon centers in the earlier generations, because you could actively meet up with friends in yours and all that. And through the PSS, you could also even grab randos' secret bases and store them in your version of Hoenn. With that said, you can only store, I believe, up to 30, I want to say including your own. And there are things you could do in multiplayer there specifically, like you could actively store friends as trainers to battle and all that. Or get secondary effects of them like daily berries, massages, EV boosts, and all that. With that said, because it requires multiplayer, that is a feature we're not really going to be showcasing in this LP. I attempt to later on. That also leads to one of the few items I actively can't grab in the LP. More on that way later. With that said, time for our next new Pokemon. This is Spoink, a new Gen 3 Psychic type. Pure Psychic, so it's weak to Bug, Ghost, and Dark. Spoink's got a pretty good special defense stat for a first stage Pokemon. But when it evolves, it gets even better at that exact thing, getting more special defense and a good special attack stat to back it up as well. It's got a decent learn set. It's a good Psychic type line overall. It's just that there's also better Psychic type lines for what I'm at least looking for. So not one I tend to use, but I do love the design of Spoink. I love this weird little bouncing pig. I am admittedly fighting this Spoink a little bit stupidly right now, but I'll tell you the main reason for that. If memory serves, this was nearing the end of a recording session, and I was getting tired. Because most recording sessions for this particular LP were upwards of an hour and a half to 2 hours, and that can weigh on a person across a day, especially if I do several. Now, next up, their next Pokemon's also a new one, and it's a relatively interesting one, Mauville. Mauville was a pure Steel type in Gen 3, but as of the introduction of Fairy in Gen 6, it is now a Steel Fairy type, making it weak to Ground and Fire, but immune to Poison and Dragon. Mauville on its own doesn't seem like much to write home about. It's got some decent physical stats, but the rest of its stats aren't exactly great. But in Gen 6, it ultimately got a Mega Evolution as well that boosted its physical stats to ridiculous levels and also gave it a decent special defense stat. Notably, by default, Mauville can have one of 3 abilities. Hyper Cutter, which prevents its attack stat from being reduced at all. It can have Intimidate, which we've also talked about, but notably its hidden ability is Sheer Force. That raises the base power of any move that doesn't have a secondary effect. So something like Strength would be a very good move to have on a Mauville with Sheer Force, for instance. But worth noting, Mega Evolutions are also notable not only because they update the design, they also get a new ability. Mega Mawile in specific, because we do have the Mega Stone for it, gets access to the ability Huge Power, which doubles its attack stat outright, which when you partner that with the already high attack stat of Mega Mawile, makes for a very good physical attacker. I'm not the biggest fan of using Pokemon that don't evolve ever in their evolutionary line. There's only a couple like Skarmory I use with any kind of regularity. But with the introduction of the Fairy type and Mega Mawile's existence, Mawile's one that I've considered using several times, and I think I've used at least once or twice since. Now, I brought up that the point where May healed us a few moments ago was not in the original game, and honestly feels a little weird. The main reason for that is that this route right here has a spot like that already, even in the original release. On the southeastern chunk here that you can access either by going around these trees or by cutting down a tree on the southern chunk of this tree line below me, there's a house you can reach that has an old lady in it that'll just heal you outright. I do not get why the May healing points were added. They don't really feel needed in the long run in any regard. Also worth noting, I believe that specific NPC I just talked to will give you a different berry randomly every day. Also worth noting, we're about to end the part, of course. But at the start of the next part, we're actively going to be quickly back in Mauville really quick to go grab a mock bike so I can climb the sand hill we just saw to our north. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 10, not only are we going to do just that, we're going to head west from where we are right now onto Route 113 and beyond. See you guys then.